Manchester United fans are going to be able to watch their players play in 2027? How many of them are there? Who? In Man United, probably in 2027 they'll be having a couple of proper African players who will be in AFCON competition. I know Arsenal going to have, I'll tell you that is. Anyway, that story has been covered on pages 4 and 5. By the way, it's good news for the country and the economy. Good. On page 7, you're going to read about how there's now a blow to RUTO as members of parliament question education report. There's also fresh pain as cement prices go up. Story covered on page 18. And there's a click ban at dicey nature of blur photos. That particular story covered on page 6, and you'll know exactly where we're coming from. The DP is struggling now to fit in RUTO's former shoes. I think that 1 year later, the deputy president is the deputy president's scorecard sees him earning points from milk and tea farmers, but flopping on coffee and illicit alcohol wars in central Kenya. Read that particular story on page 8. By the way, I can't leave without telling you what this says. This is the direct quote from sports seers Babuna Mwamba. East Africans, we are one. A single passport, we speak one language, that is Kiswahili. We have a common agenda, and hosting this tournament is such a big shot in the arm for integration. Indeed, it is. Tanzania watakuwa Kenya kuna AFCON, by the way. And those guys were saving for this competition. Pia save bana. Weekend inakuja tuingia kwa basi tuenda Tanzania kuona AFCON. Ni kweli, it's gonna be really beautiful. Yeah? I'm looking forward to it. I'm happy as a Kenyan and as a football fan. And I know majority of football fans are also happy. Yeah? Kwa wale ambao walikuwa wanataka kuwa wa Tanzania tutakuwa tu hapa bana. Yeah? Utakuja kuona. Sijui wapi wakikuwa nyayo ni hapa tu, endeni mjishindie. You know? As the integration that Babuna Mwamba is talking about. Let's cross over to the Daily Nation. Same story. I'm not going to talk about this story on a football extravaganza. It's coming home. I don't like this headline though. It's coming home. This headline, we saw it during World Cup. Yeah, when England was saying it's coming home, but it never came home. Pages 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, pages 2, 3, 46, and 47. They've gone deep into this story, so read that particular story. But then there is a story about how Mudhama and Demo in a 1 billion found in Konza Technopolis. Read that particular story on pages 7. And there's also windfall. Tea farmers set for bonus next month. That story has been covered on the back pages. Teenager in Maigo murder case set to be held for 21 days. That particular story covered on page 10, by the way. And there's a big story that we covered right here on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke. And there's a relief now. RUTO, we've written off 117 billion onto state by sugar mills. That particular story covered on page 6 of the Daily Nation. That's it. By the way, majority of the stories on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke. There's a story that I did about the sport of parkour. Do you know what that is? Hashtag the morning draft. Once we come back, straight to the newsroom. Well, welcome back. Let's jump straight into the newsroom then. Amina, alleged to have murdered Nairobi Hospital acting finance manager Erica Maigo will remain in police custody for 21 days to allow police conclude investigations. The 16-year-old was arrested yesterday at Kibra area in Nairobi, days after police had launched a manhunt following a viral video that saw her leave the deceased apartment. Ivy Wangulu on the corridors of justice.
In a miscellaneous application, the police say that the minor is believed to have orchestrated the violence which resulted to the death of the Nairobi Hospital Acting Finance Director, Eric Maigo. The investigation officer investigating the matter further say that the key witness are yet to record statements and taking of DNA samples for the government analysis by the government chemist. The 16-year-old will be held for 21 more days to allow investigations to be completed.
The victims, the family of the deceased have a huge interest in this matter.
Elsewhere, a murder case against Safari Rally driver Maxine Wahome proceeded on Tuesday with Asad Han's neighbor taken to the witness stand to testify. The court was told that Maxine and the deceased used to have differences and they would fight from time to time.
A bit frantic, but there was just sort of whimpering, like crying, soft crying.
Now, hundreds of residents in Cherab and Chari wards of Isiolo County have benefited from a free eye clinic surgery camp that has been running from Monday. Now, the exercise is courtesy of the county government in partnership with IC Health Ministries and the Christian Blind Mission Global. Residents have been urged to turn out in large numbers and get their eyesight restored or improved, with consultants noting that cataracts was the main eye problem encountered as a result of old age. Other eye problems identified are said to be caused by trauma and accidents.
It's a sigh of relief for residents of Cherab and Chari wards of Isiolo County after they received a week-long free eye clinic courtesy of the county government of Isiolo in partnership with AIC Health Ministries and the Christian Blind Mission. The project, dubbed as PRIDE, which is Priority Inclusive Delivery of Eye Health, which has benefited hundreds in the region by providing free eye checkups and eye surgeries at Metri Hospital to remove cataracts and restore eyesight. The beneficiaries have hailed the project, sending their heartfelt gratitude to the sponsors for providing free eye care.
Nashukuru Mwenyezi Mungu ambaye amewezesha madaktari wale ambao wamekuja kutuhudumia kufika salama, na sisi kama wenyeji wa Marti tunashukuru kabisa huduma ile ambayo tulikuwa tumepewa leo, because hapo awali maybe sasa kama kuna shida ya macho huwa watu wanagharamia kuenda sehemu zingine, then wanaenda kuingia gharama ile ya juu kabisa, na maybe wale ambao hawajiwezi, yani hawawezi kufikia kwa hiyo huduma, then wanapata tu shida alafu wanabaki nyumbani.
According to Dr. Kagendo Kahunyo, a consultant ophthalmologist at the Isiolo County Referral Hospital, who led the team of optical medics who are carrying out screening and corrective surgeries, she has highlighted that most of the challenges encountered at the eye-free clinic were cataracts, which mostly affect the elderly members of the society. Kagendo has also urged those with visual challenges to take advantage of the free eye clinic at Metri Hospital for screening and possible surgery before the exercise ends on Friday evening.
Cataract surgery, ambazo cataract ni ugonjwa ambao unazuia macho kuona, na ni ugonjwa ambao unaathiri sana sana wazee.
Wairi Mwasike, Lookuptv.
Azimio and Kenya Kwanza senators have supported health bills allowing hospitals to collect and manage revenue. The Facilities Improved Financing Act Bill, actually Bill 2023, and the Primary Care Bill 2023 have lauded the steps in making universal health care program a reality. Rugai Val with more.
1 month ago, the government of Kenya released 4 new health bills to accelerate progress towards the goal of universal health coverage. If passed, the bills will set in motion far-reaching reforms to how health services are financed and delivered in Kenya, that is, between the national government and the county government. Discussing the Primary Health Care Bill 2023, today in Turkana County, the Senate Assembly voted yes to this bill.
Now, Honorable Senators, the results of the division are as follows. The ayes 36, the nays 0, Abstentions 0. So the ayes have it.
A number of them arguing that it will help to improve health infrastructures at the local level, as well as steering a safe and swift method of delivering medical services to Kenyans.
My proposal, which I want to request members that are here that were keen on that particular point, let's make that provision on 13F a little bit more elaborate so that it's agreed that all resources that are raised principally for the purpose of primary health, and I think it was Senator Dr. Boni Alwale who spoke on the interest that public health generates, especially with all these global funds. You are sure that all those funds are directed to the counties.
However, the senators want the bill to be amended in the interest of establishing a devolved management paradigm, explaining that too much duties being under the national government are withholding funds and delayed executions at the county level.
How can we be debating the law that will give a framework to appointment of community health promoters, and the president and the governor of Nairobi have already gone ahead and are telling us that they have employed community health promoters? Who are those people that were being flagged off at Uhuru Park? And what is the purpose of this Senate if the laws that are supposed to give effect to these things are being debated when the things are already being done? What are we doing here?
This is being put into discussion after the cabinet approved 4 crucial bills that promote healthcare emanation to Parliament. The cabinet said these bills are set to give a pathway in the legal and institutional framework for healthcare in Kenya by repealing the current NHIF, that is National Health Insurance Fund, and establishing in its place the following funds: Primary Healthcare Fund, Social Healthcare Insurance Fund, and Emergency Chronic and Critical Illness Fund. Among the 4 health bills proposed is the Social Health Insurance Bill, which proposes extending health insurance to all Kenyans based on member contributions with government-subsidized coverage for the poor. It also mandates the creation of 3 funds to cover different types of services and a new government agency to manage it all. Ruga Ival, Lookuptv.
Coffee farmers in Murang'a have called for minimum guaranteed returns, failure to which they will abandon the trade altogether, despite the national government's promises to revive the sector. Mevin Getembe with more.
Coffee farmers in Murang'a County have threatened to abandon the much-hyped coffee farming if the government is not willing to give the guaranteed minimum returns. The farmers have lamented about their tough experience where the hard-earned sweat went unpaid whenever prices go down, leaving the farmer poorer than before.
Factory iko mbali, so mali mtu anachuna tuseme from kwa shamba, lazima ukue kwa shamba, wanatoa kwa shamba kupeleka kwa factory, it's a distance.
Efanthas Moura, a coffee farmer, can only account the last 4 decades of farming, which he says coffee played an important role in financing their livelihood and educating their children. Unlike in the recent days, where farmers are left with debts emanated from coffee production to pay the lease.
Seme hapo mbeleni tulikuwa tukilima kahawa tunapata mapato, tunapata pesa yetu kwa njia mzuri, na tulikuwa tunasomesha watoto wetu kwa njia ya rahisi sana. Watoto wetu walikuwa wamesoma. Saa hii ukienda kutembea katika hii area yangu utapata watoto wengi hawana degree, sababu tunalima kahawa, hatuna mshahara ya kutaka, malipo inakuwa chini sana.
Betty Maina, the women representative, has proposed to plant and donate hybrid coffee seedlings to farmers, saying the old type is no longer much productive, adding that farmers should also engage in water harvesting now that El Nino rains are due, instead of waiting for the government to construct water plants for them.
Angalie variety ya kahawa ambayo wakulima wetu wamepanda. Tunaona mapato ama production is very low. So we must have to check at the yield from the production. Is a farmer producing what they are supposed to produce from one bush or one plant? Are they producing? Do we have the right variety, and are we producing to our maximum production from there? We need to watch out at the technologies we have in our factories.
The farmers has now called on the government to fast-track repairs of the rural roads in coffee areas as a way of helping coffee farmers to ease transport. Mevin Getembe, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has lauded the reforms initiated with the tea sector by President William Ruto's administration Gachagua says in 6 months of the reforms, tea farmers are now reaping big and improved bonuses and overall returns from tea sales. In a consultative meeting with the sector's key stakeholders in Nairobi, Gachagua said the government will continue offering technical support to farmers while also guaranteeing regular supply of a subsidized fertilizer. Our reporter Humphrey Tende with more details.
Excellency, the Deputy President.
In a high-profile meeting with key players in the tea sector in Nairobi, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has noted a remarkable improvement in bonuses paid to tea farmers as a result of sector reforms instituted by the government.
We are proud that within 6 months of our reforms, we are restoring sanity and stabilizing the tea subsector as envisioned under the Kenya Kwanza plan of putting more money in the pocket of the tea farmer. This is a direct positive impact to the farmer who is at the bottom of the socio-economic pyramid. We are dignifying the farmer. We have dignified the over 7 million members of this family. The farmer can now pay school fees for their children. The farmer can now invest in their dream projects.
The government has taken a keen interest in the tea sector, working round the clock to come up with new regulations to eliminate cartels that have for so long taken advantage of farmers. Gachagua says these enhanced reforms mean farmers are now benefiting more from tea farming as compared to 2 years ago. According to statistics presented by the Deputy President, a number of tea factories have embraced the reforms and are now paying satisfactory bonuses to farmers. Leading the pack is Gitugi Tea Factory in Nyeri, whose bonuses to farmers has improved by 57% per kilo of tea. Coming in second is Imenti Tea Factory with an improved bonus payment of 52%, Michimikuru Tea Factory with 47% bonus payment, while Momul Tea Factory from Kericho and Nyangoba Tea Factory from Nyamira pays 44 and 35 respectively.
We ask our farmers to enlist under the ongoing registration to, among other benefits, access subsidized fertilizer. The National Government Administration officers are requested to double their efforts in registering the farmers. On this note, I challenge KTDA to also work around provision of cheaper fertilizer to farmers in the long term in conjunction with the national government.
To benefit the farmer even more, Gachagua says the government will be seeking new international markets for tea products while calling on farmers to embrace orthodox variety of tea which fetches high returns in the market.
In the face of competition from upcoming tea producers, Kenya is standing out in orthodox tea. Besides encouraging farmers to venture into other varieties like purple tea, factories now need to incorporate flavored products as part of diversifying strategy to reach wider, trendy and high-value markets.
Henry Tende, Lookuptv.
Treasury says Njuguna Ndung'u had a hard time explaining why the Kenyan shilling continues to lose value over the US dollar as the economic situation continues to worsen, despite President William RUTO assuring Kenyans that the shilling would appreciate against the greenback. That has not been the case, with the exchange rate currently at 147 shillings against the dollar.
As the economy continues to deteriorate, with the Kenyan shilling losing value to the dollar, Treasury CS Njuguna Ndung'u had a difficult time explaining why the shilling was depreciating in value, blaming decisions made years ago for the current economic crisis.
Been policy mistakes. And those policy mistakes, we are paying for them very hard. The moment you change the relative price structure, whether it is coming from heavy investment in non-tradable sector, that is like for infrastructure, road sector, housing sector, and you're holding your currencies constant, what you are really doing is actually to change the relative price structure and the value of the currencies. That is, it becomes misaligned.
With Njuguna Ndung'u serving as the CBK boss before being appointed cabinet secretary, Ruraka MP Tom Kajwang slammed the CS for being part of the decision-making team who came up with the current structures.
But I'm wondering if he would be misleading the House, because if I remember, he served as the governor of the central bank within these years that he's talking about. In other words, he was part of policy making that he's talking about.
With the CS unsure of when the dollar to shilling problem will be solved, despite President RUTO promising Kenyans that the shilling will gain value, Suna East MP Junet Mohammed took the opportunity to slam the government for putting mechanisms in place, which has made the situation worse despite working together with oil-producing countries.
As soon as you allowed the nominal exchange rate to move, because there was a requirement of it cannot fluctuate between 20 cents on either way, then we restarted the interbank market. There was a steep depreciation, which was also being pushed by the scarcity value of the dollar.
The government-to-government petroleum procurement system was supposed to help bring down the dollar to a rate that is possible, that is low. But Mr. Speaker, from the time we engaged in the G2G petroleum project, the shilling has depreciated by 25%, leave alone strengthening. And yesterday the minister issued a long statement saying that if we did not do that, the shilling even will have been worse.
The minister should be telling this house is what is the treasury or the central bank doing so that the shilling is not on the free fall, so that the importers and exporters are going to get value for money.
As the national dialogue entered its 26th day yesterday, the National Police Oversight Authority, IPOA, called for changes in law governing the authority to grant them more powers to execute their mandate on matters police brutality. Appearing before the committee, among other stakeholders, to give submissions, IPOA further advocated for the inclusion of 2/3 gender rule principles and the enrollment of female officers in the security personnel. Stanley Lugaria was at the Bomas of Kenya and compiles the following report.
We went to the streets.
Independent Policing Oversight Authority IPOA, during their submissions to NADCO on Wednesday, have recommended an increase of their powers to enable them to deal with the police brutality menace, as well as the inclusion of the Police Development Fund into the Consolidated Fund to help improve the uniformed men's living standards.
Government affirmative action fund can be enhanced and entrenched in the Constitution. It can probably fund the rollout and support the polycare centers within the police stations.
The authority had a difficult time expounding on the measures they have undertaken to curb the police brutality, following Opiyo Wandai's remarks of a difference in figure between Azimio and IPOA on the total number of deaths resulting from the recently witnessed demonstrations, with Azimio reporting a total of 73, contrary to the IPOA who reported 57 across the country.
Or confirm. But from your end, because you are financed by taxpayers to do exactly that, how many lives of Kenyans were lost from police brutality?
The data that we have on deaths is 57.
Not 73.
Not 73.
IPOA has emphasized on the implementation of the 2/3 gender rule agenda, reiterating on the inclusion of the number of the slots awarded to females during the police force recruitment process.
In terms of that gender rule, we note that Kenya has made tremendous progress in terms of gender equality. However, within the space that we operate, which is policing, women officers comprise 10%.
On the other hand, NCIC has pushed for the agenda on unemployment among the youth to be addressed, as well as solving land and boundaries disputes and delimitation, revealing that the committee should come up with lasting solutions to the problems arising from the elections, alluding the country is in a limbo as a result of miscalculated political moves, which have left the country in a mess through the selfish political leaders who put their interest first at the masses of peace and tranquility.
National Dialogue Committee, this particular committee, is a moment again for Kenya to be courageous enough and confront the past. But I want to say the reason why we've missed those opportunities is because when a moment comes for us to engage in reconciliation, it is only important if the politicians are unhappy.
Women represented by Maendeleo ya Wanawake have advocated for the separation of cost of living and politics, citing that the politicians have politicized the matter instead of solving the equation that the majority of Kenyans continue to grapple with.
We would appreciate a separation of matters to do with cost of living and politics, because cost of living is affected by other external factors, such as we had a prolonged drought.
As the national dialogues continue or enters its day 26
of the national dialogues at the Bomas of Kenya. Now the big question arises, will the National Dialogue Committee approve all submissions made from the public, or will it relent to the idea that the reconstitution of the 2010 Constitution be undertaken or be delved to? Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv, at the Bomas of Kenya, Nairobi.
Lugaria, Stanley then takes us into our first break right here on the Morning Drift this morning. A particular story is a story that will continue gripping your headlines all the way to the expiry of that time limit that particular committee was given then to submit a draft. But this morning then, that's the big question, that majority of everything that they're talking about looks like it'll end up in some sort of referendum. Let's talk about that this morning. That plus the fact that I will be going to cover those stories because I want to get the 2,500 shillings daily for 11 days. Prof and John are coming to the studio shortly.
Did you know that 17 women die every day in Kenya during a childbirth? We lose about 39,000 newborns due to preventable conditions like malaria, neonatal sepsis, as well as diarrheal diseases. And guess what? These deaths of mothers and newborns, they are both preventable. RUTO Care Box is an organization that's extremely passionate about reducing maternal and newborn deaths using a simple box, a simple public health initiative that is a box, and life-saving education.
Today we are at St. John's Hospital here in Githurai. We are here in conjunction with RUTO Care Box.
Mimi ya leo kwanza ni kushukuru RUTO Foundation wakiwa pamoja na RUTO Care kwa sababu ya kuangalia mama wetu.
I really feel very honored by RUTO because I never even thought anybody could think about us, you know, the way you have done. And thank you very much.
Lucy, we just want to tell you from RUTO that you're one of our first Shuja.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the RUTO Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Are you looking for experts in waterproofing systems, concrete admixtures, flooring systems, refurbishment solutions, roofing, sealing and bonding, and building finishing systems? Look no more, as Sika Kenya got you covered. With over 113 years of experience, we offer our customers a comprehensive one-stop shop experience and the best technical support. Our products are available in all leading hardware stores and building merchants across the country. Call us today on 0711 140 232 or 0786 140 834 or email us on sales@ke.sika.com. Sika Kenya, building trust.
Hi, and welcome to Tujenge Home. Your number one show when it comes to all things architecture, real estate, property development, interior design. You get it right here on Tujenge Home. When the food is ready.
You want to serve them?
Dinner is served. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go.
Praise the Lord and Bwana Yesu asifiwe sana. My name is Pastor Joseph. I'm from a ministry called Reconcilers World. God gives strength to to the weary. I am, Jesus is speaking. He says, I am the door. Then he says, anyone who enters in through me will be saved. The Lord is my shepherd or shepherd. Then he says, I will always have everything I need. God desires to guide you. He's telling you that this day, don't just trust the Lord, but he's telling you, trust the Lord widely.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
And Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. We are online at Lookuptv across all of them. I'm at Kiage Simba next. So let's get talking this morning. And a lot of things that we're going to talk about this morning, all the way up to 9 a.m. But then, what is essentially the talk of a town right now is that bipartisan committee at the Bomas of Kenya has just but 31 days to deliver a draft that is essentially going to be the back end of solutions to the problems that the opposition and the government pointed out in those discussion agenda at the Bomas of Kenya. Just before I introduce then the guests who are joining us this morning, yesterday they spoke about it. And by the way, I made a plea to our chief editor, Job Maura, that I should be there every day to cover those stories, because they're paying 2,500 shillings a day for every other journalist who goes there. That's 2,500 times 11. 20 journalists are going to get paid 220,000. And also on bullet number 8, out of a story that the Nation media ran yesterday. They're also paying 330,000 for media to make the report popular. That could see me go home with 50,000 shillings. That's enough for my Christmas job. Take me off morning drift. Let's take a look at that story. Prof is in the building.
We went to the streets.
Independent Policing Oversight Authority IPOA, during their submissions to NADCO on Wednesday, have recommended an increase of their powers to enable them to deal with the police brutality menace, as well as the inclusion of the Police Development Fund into the Consolidated Fund to help improve the uniformed men's living standards.
Government affirmative action fund can be enhanced and entrenched in the Constitution. It can probably fund the rollout and support the polycare centers within the police stations.
The authority had a difficult time expounding on the measures they have undertaken to curb the police brutality, following Opiyo Wandai's remarks of a difference in figure between Azimio and IPOA on the total number of deaths resulting from the recently witnessed demonstrations, with Azimio reporting a total of 73, contrary to the IPOA who reported 57 across the country.
Or confirm. But from your end, because you are financed by taxpayers to do exactly that, how many lives of Kenyans were lost from police brutality?
The data that we have on deaths is 57.
Not 73.
Not 73.
IPOA has emphasized on the implementation of the 2/3 gender rule agenda, reiterating on the inclusion of the number of the slots awarded to females during the police force recruitment process.
In terms of that gender rule, we note that Kenya has made tremendous progress in terms of gender equality. However, within the space that we operate, which is policing, women officers comprise 10%.
On the other hand, NCIC has pushed for the agenda on unemployment among the youth to be addressed, as well as solving land and boundaries disputes and delimitation, revealing that the committee should come up with lasting solutions to the problems arising from the elections, alluding the country is in a limbo as a result of miscalculated political moves, which have left the country in a mess through the selfish political leaders who put their interest first at the masses of peace and tranquility.
National Dialogue Committee, this particular committee, is a moment again for Kenya to be courageous enough and confront the past. But I want to say the reason why we've missed those opportunities is because when a moment comes for us to engage in reconciliation, it is only important if the politicians are unhappy.
Women represented by Maendeleo ya Wanawake have advocated for the separation of cost of living and politics, citing that the politicians have politicized the matter instead of solving the equation that the majority of Kenyans continue to grapple with.
We would appreciate a separation of matters to do with cost of living and politics, because cost of living is affected by other external factors, such as we had a prolonged drought.
As the national dialogues continue, our enters it day 26 of the national dialogues at the Bomas of Kenya. Now the big question arises, will the National Dialogue Committee approve all submissions made from the public, or will it relent to the idea that the reconstitution of the 2010 Constitution be undertaken or be delved to? Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv at the Bomas of Kenya, Nairobi.
That story by Lugaria Stanley. And by the way, if you've been following his reports from the Bomas of Kenya, they've been changing. That indeed, every other day, there are these special groups now and lobby groups that are delivering their memoranda to the ladies and gentlemen that are headlining those talks at the Bomas of Kenya. But when you look at the days that are left then to deliberate on these issues, it is just what? 31 days to go. So that means that in just a month, if we clear this week, by Friday, they have 29 days. That's less than a month. But then we are at that particular point where they're taking in suggestions. And if we look at exactly what we've seen, it's just a flurry of suggestions because it's open door. We've seen suggestions of expanding counties. We've seen suggestions of what the police should do. And if you listen to IPOA now, they've also used this as an opportunity then to ask that particular committee to look into issues, police conduct in the country. Fine. Then you're wondering, did these negotiations change all of a sudden? Because look at how they started. They started like this. Azimio coalition said, we're going to talk about this. The government said, we want to talk about this. Then you would like to think that that committee then would have asked for proposals on those issues. No, that's not the case now. It is gone with the wind. We're going to talk about anything and everything. But remember, should one of those motions be taken up by that committee, remember they're anchored within law. So if Cherargei's motion is picked up and then discussed, and then they indeed do get to an agreement, it is still anchored within law. So they have a point. Good. This morning, we are asking two questions. Why is it open-ended? And then, if you look at majority of those suggestions, it looks like all of them, if not just but a few, are taking the country into a referendum. Prof is in the building. Prof, how are you doing?
Good morning, Simba.
Happy to have you around. Let me begin like this. If indeed majority of those issues, just save for a few, like IEBC, reconstitution, and government representation, which again, if you interpret it deeper, you might also say, well, depending on what they agree, we might go to a referendum.
Yeah.
Why are we wasting 106 million shillings as opposed to saying, gentlemen, just stop this process of talking about issues that are essentially going to take us to a referendum? All the issues that have been suggested by the Kenya Kwanza side as a constitutional change, whatever they're saying is that, well, they're anchored within law, they're going to go back to those houses, which takes us back to where we started from. After that, if they pass it, then we're going to go back to a referendum. Save for just a few. An issue of IEBC, just maybe if you look at it, actually just IEBC is not what is going to take us to a referendum. Then what we're wasting all this time is instead of just going back to a referendum, Prof.
You see, Simba, there is something, first of all, today I always nowadays work with the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
Yes.
Because at Operation Jamii we say we are partisan to the Constitution. Just like as a Christian, I'm partisan to the Bible. And of course, in marriage, you are partisan to love. And then at work, you're partisan to professionalism. When we have a society which is partisan to nothing, then everything goes. That's why I've made a choice that in my place of work, I'll always be professional and be very professional. And I'm sure, Simba, I know you for some time. You've been a very good professional in your way, like you engage with us here. When you find things not going the way the media policy is, you know, oh, Prof, no, let's stick to the lane. Yes. That is not a fact. Let's focus on facts. Let's not beat the news. And I think that's what people need to do. We need a society that is partisan to at least something.
No, sir.
So if you look at Bomas, what are they partisan to? If you look at our leaders in Kenya, what are they partisan to? At least when I was growing up, Simba, these are values that comes from the family.
Yes.
Whenever there was disagreement, my father used to say, let's find a solution in the Bible. Because my father was partisan to the Bible. I am partisan to the Bible. You should be partisan to at least your faith. There's something you're surprised to. Muslims should be partisan to the Quran, which is also a very good book. Hindus, the same. So we need a society which at least is partisan to something. Then I know when I'm approaching Simba, what do you believe in? So put that aside. There's something we call opening the floodgates. You know, there's an analogy that when there's flood out there and this building is close to even there's no air. Once you open a window, the floods will fill this building. And that's what's happening in Bomas. They opened the window because I told you before that Azimio was in the street and they had a claim. Why did Kenya Kwanza again start building up a list of what their claims were? Because they were not on the street. Why are they? So long as it was open that not only those who are complaining could present their claims, then Kenya Kwanza came with their claims. Then look at this. Co-chairs. Why do we have a chair of Azimio and a chair of Kenya Kwanza. And what's happening in Bomas is a circus. Why is this a circus? I don't know, Simba, you've ever submitted anywhere a tender to do some job.
Yes, I have.
Then you find you are just being used to qualify. For example, if that company wants that there must be 3 people submitting proposals, then they'll pick one of them. You find that you are just one of those people, but the person they want to pick, they know. This is what's happening in Bomas. You ask if the theory of 31 days is anything to go by, and if at all you say that they are still receiving proposals, means they are not going to consider them. They know what they want, so these proposal people are sending are just a by the way. And I can tell you, Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1-6 says there's nothing new under the sun. Everything people are presenting are copying from previous problems we have. The election issue, there's Kregler report that says in detail why we get election wrong. And the Bomas process is taking us that direction. Why? We don't have an IB in place. Kregler report says that there should be an IBC in place some years before the election so that they can be well prepared. The laws to be passed in IBC for election should be there sometime before elections are done. Now we are going to go Bomas. There is no IBC. There should be some by-election to take place. They are not taking place. They are going to come with laws that will affect election. They will be passed when, if we go for referendum, maybe 1 year to the referendum. The IBC will be trying to plan for election. Then laws change how election should be done. In a way, they need to begin preparations again. Then we'll go for a shambolic election. Then again, we go for post-election negotiation. Things don't go wrong, Simba. Things start wrong. And this has started wrong.
Yes.
We as Operational Jamhuri submitted a memorandum and said a national dialogue cannot be chaired by Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. First of all, how many parties were in the election? Forget about the presidential. Many parties were in the election from, I don't know, there were a coalition of 26 parties in Kenya, in Azimio. There are around 6 or 7 in Kenya Kwanza. Why are they not co-chairs? Why didn't they have 40 co-chairs? Why pick 2, then you call it a national dialogue? It's very clear how many parties, because the chair of from Kenya Kwanza is Ichungwa, isn't it?
Yes.
He represents UDA. This other one is Kalonzo Musyoka. He represents Azimio, or if you like, a Wiper. Why are not other chairs also involved? There are some parties which are neither in those coalitions. So Kenya also is a multi-party democracy. There is no civil society. There is no religious bodies. There's no unions there. There's no private sector. So this is a political process. It has nothing to do with national dialogue. In fact, they're abusing the word national dialogue by putting it right there. And let me tell you how we got it right in the 2010 Constitution. They had an independent committee which was chaired by Okuru Akot, which was outside politics. It was not state controlled. So even the state were presenting their own memorandum. And it was not in parliament which was impeding people to reach out to them.
Yes.
They had an office somewhere in Westlands. They were very accessible. In the one which failed was called Wako Draft. It was called Wako Draft because in the end it was government draft. Wako was the Attorney General. Anything you put inside the government, there must be state and society. State and society has never always walked in the same path. That's why, as a good journalist, I recommend you to read the book which is called The Narrow Corridor. The Narrow Corridor says that it's the perfect corridor when the state and society are relating to each other very well, where the state power and societal power is at good balance. And that's why you need an independent body that was supposed to pick those issues and run with it. But here, when you begin with parliament co-sharing these things, everything really has gone wrong. And I have 2 hypotheses. Either they already know what they want, they're going to write the report that they want, and the report will be written with what William RUTO wants and what Raila has agreed on. Then they pass that one. So whatever you're bringing there, the lens is what does Raila want and what does RUTO want, it will pass.
Yes.
If they were sincere, they were supposed to put someone very independent. If they were sincere, they were supposed to stick to the agenda. Remember, you said it's constitutional. No, not everything they're presenting there is constitutional, because the agenda was also passed in parliament, meaning that parliament can say anything you come up with outside what we pass in Parliament as agenda is useless. And that's how they are taking us for granted. So I'm telling you that, yes, seriously, if the thing will be go to Parliament to pass, because any law that must be passed in Parliament, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Parliament will tell you, we gazetted the national dialogue. We passed the national dialogue in Parliament and entrenched it in Parliament as a parliamentary agenda.
Based on those issues.
Based on those issues.
So, isn't it?
Anything that has come later, we are sorry. So then it will, like BBI, it will be ruled out. Then secondly, this thing is unconstitutional, the Bomas thing. Why? Who is the initiator? Look at BBI 1. They met, they did a handshake. So the initiator was William RUTO and Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, isn't it?
Doesn't.
So how did this process begin? Because that's what we'll be asking Supreme Court or High Court. For us, we shall go to court when they come with some things which we don't want to accept. We'll ask, who initiated the Bomas talks? Raila flew to Mombasa and met William RUTO, isn't it? Then William RUTO called for bipartisan, isn't it? It is not a civilian who called. And the constitution is clear, again, 2010 constitution is very clear. Who can initiate a constitutional reform? It cannot be a state officer, not just president, not just member. It cannot be a state, anybody who is called state officer cannot.
Yes. Do they have a way around it? I mean, you would also argue that Raila Amolo Odinga also initiated the process.
No. Here, you see, who called for bipartisan? This is William RUTO. Raila Odinga didn't initiate it. He only went to the street. It's clear. Who called for handshake? Can you go to State House, Harambee House without the president calling you there? It's the president who called Raila Odinga in Harambee House and shook his hand. So he initiated it, the Building Bridges Initiative. This one by the president going on public and addressed the nation in broad daylight and said he has heard what Raila Odinga wants. He's going to listen to him. And he has called for the bipartisan talks to call off the Mandamano. Is that not what was said? So who initiated it? We shall argue. We are lawyers, man. We will not allow someone to cheat us.
Yes.
You know in your heart. Who initiated the multi-partisan talk?
If you look at how we got to the second round of negotiations, I mean, you could argue both sides. Number one, if you look at the first round, Raila Amolo Odinga was essentially not calling for negotiations. He went to the street and said that I'm going to work very hard to make sure that some of the things that I want achieved on the cost of living, on government, essentially on the police force being brutal in the way they're handling the demonstrations in the country, that I'm going to push this government to listen to us. Good. Now the president came in and said, well, I'm going to listen to you. All right, let's go to a table. Then those collapsed. In the second round of negotiations, is there a lacuna in trying to say, well, I don't think the president called for that?
The initiator of bipartisan talks,
yes.
The name is clear, is William RUTO. The person who called for and appointed the two chairs is William RUTO. He met the Kenya Kwanza MPs in State House. It's clear. They address the media. Those are state officers. Tell me the civilian. Raila Odinga is not a civilian. Who is a civilian in all that process? None of them is a civilian.
Does he not identify as a civilian?
No,
you
he's
say
not.
that he holds no public office.
No, he's not a civilian.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not a civilian. But he didn't initiate the process. In fact, the process was initiated by the state. Because Raila Odinga's aim, as we know it, was to remove RUTO from the State House. Look at the aim of Mandamano. We will remove him from office. That was the aim. It was not about these ones. These ones are now like, after he said, let's talk, then they said, these are our issues. We know the process. He said, these are the issues, and these are the terms of reference for talking. But his aim was to do what? To remove him from State House. That's what we knew. Didn't you? Were you not dreaming to be in State House? Me, I was dreaming that after Raila Odinga removed this man from State House, maybe there can be some process on which actually for us we can get closer to power. And our dream was vanquished somewhere. He didn't remove him. So, Simba, take this to the bank. Any legal argument that can stop us from believing that the president did not initiate the process is neither here nor there. Nothing can be passed in Parliament without presidential blessing. He rules that house. So even this bipartisan, the constitution, everything, anything he does not agree with will not pass. The Finance Act passed in Parliament,
yes,
in spite of Raila wanting otherwise, isn't it?
Yes.
How comes this one has passed in Parliament? It has the presidential blessing. So he controls that house. So that's the truth. So I want to tell you what I told you before you walked, when you're just walking, before we began the show. That there are two elephants which are not in the room in Bomas. And these two elephants are, one, corruption. Simba, the cost of living is high because of corruption. Yes, that is the fact. We are eating so much from the money we collect and money we borrow that we cannot make Wanjiku's life possible. If I was president, and I would just kill corruption, isn't it? The cost of doing business is very high because of corruption. Everybody wants a cut on anything. When you are building a road, you'll be told, you know, this is for these people, this is for that person, this is for that person. That is the fact here. If there is corruption in this country, cost of living will be high. Then if you tell me you're setting up an IBC, having an IBC when there's corruption, there's nothing. IBC will be corrupted by corruption. You can change the constitution, but money can corrupt the constitution. So everything and everywhere, the biggest elephant in the room, that if Kenyans in Bomas were supposed to say, what is the main issue? Corruption. Cost of living, look at what we're talking about, importing oil, isn't it? The whole thing about corruption there is very clear. The front page of newspaper today is about the corruption that was taking place in Konza Technopolis. So I'm trying to talk about the corruption. If we don't remove that animal, nothing goes. Then the independence of the institutions, of constitutional institutions.
Yes.
IBC can be set up in a way that Raila Odinga and RUTO agree, but what is happening is, are they independent? How comes after the election every commission has to go home? Tell me any commission that stayed in office after an election. And then they are called Independent Boundaries and Electoral Commission. Anything in Kenya that begins the word independent, that's why there is no independence. Where you see corruption, that there is zero corruption-free zone, when you see this in the back, on the front page, means at the back, when you enter the office, that's corruption begins there. But the corruption is not just there on the billboard. The billboard, there's no corruption there. But behind that billboard, where the offices are, corruption begins there in a big way. I'm telling you, Simba, you young people who are listening to me, if you are still looking for how to put someone in office, you are the problem. The day you'll get somebody like me, Fred Ogola, and help him become a head of state, that's the day your future will be in your hands. But when someone buys you, where becoming a president has a high correlation with someone who has more money, which has more correlation with someone who has stolen more, that's when we have lost the state. Yeah. For me, if we can go to Bomas and say, how can you reform our country to see corruption as an enemy? There's no single antibody in Kenya for corruption. When corruption money comes to your body, it gets absorbed as if it's just some of your blood vessels. There's no antibody against it. People just make noise, we don't like corruption, but everybody else accepts corruption money. For me, I've gone to court, Simba, 16 cases in court. Some of them are against the state. I've been called to eat on the table. I say, I don't want. I've been called for 40 million, 30 million, I've refused to take. Because my case must be prosecuted in the interest of public, because I want public interest litigation. And I'm telling people that if we do not discuss that big elephant, or if that elephant is not in the room, there's nothing in the room. You can have a leader of opposition, you can have prime secretary, you can have all those things you're asking for. You can even talk about political parties thing. It is all that corruption can corrupt. Money corrupts. And they said, power also interferes with independent institutions. For example, if executive does not respect judiciary, does not respect legislature, where last time we saw the executive threatening legislature to pass a finance act, which was draconian. If we don't respect institutions, we don't go nowhere. Like in the US, Simba, you can never see anyone talking to judges that you're having coffee with the judge. In Kenya, you can have coffee with them, you can sleep with them, you can take them for a trip. In US, Britain, you cannot even want to talk to a judge. About what discussion they're discussing? If he's going to make a decision about you, judges should be judges, you as litigants should be litigants, the accused should be accused. Why you meet to talk to judges? In Kenya, it is, you can see, for example, Chief Justice in a public thing, almost to the point of hugging the president. I mean, if it's about you are going to attend presidential function, there's a way you get received, isn't it? How can a Chief Justice line up during a public holiday to receive the president? You know, the president is the head of the executive, isn't it? Yeah. Chief Justice is the head of the judiciary. Speaker is the head of legislature. But how comes when the president arrives in a function, the speaker is aligning to receive him, Chief Justice is aligning to receive him, and you can even see Moses Wetangula was an MC in a presidential function in Western Kenya. I'm just wondering, what is the mannerism we have in leadership? I can tell you, my brother, if money is agenda number one, like those figures are reading in Bomas, yes, then leadership becomes number 9, and governance becomes number 10, and let us forget about reforming the country.
Pretty much. Guess what? Once we come back, then there's a conversation here that we're going to look at. Is RUTO being smart then? Because if we are going to a referendum, nobody knows when that is going to be. Nobody knows what the Treasury is going to say about whether the country has the resources for us to go to a referendum. And if then, the words of Ricky G, the truthful man, that this is a conversation that ended between Raila Amolo Odinga and President Ruto in Mombasa, who's fooling whom in this conversation? Once we come back right here on the Morning Brief, talk to us at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. The conversation continues. We're still with Prof. Goda.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park, fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Let's get back at it then. This morning, the question is, if indeed majority of those conversations are going to go to a constitutional process, which is essentially a referendum, then why didn't we get there a bit early? Why are we still at the Bomas of Kenya talking about what? If indeed that's going to be the conversation, then this is a question that we need to ask. Prof.
Yes.
Indeed, when you analyze the first bipartisan negotiations that crashed,
Yeah.
you would say that the president was buying time. They were never serious. They never knew that was going to go anywhere. In fact, from the get-go, they were like, okay, call them to a room, take them off the street as we figure what is going to happen. And you could see that nobody was committed to it.
Yeah.
And Azimio coalition learned on it immediately, and they got out.
Yeah.
Good. Second round. When you look at how the second round of negotiations are pegged, it's like somebody got smarter. Prof. He said, good. Tell them we're going to talk about everything. Invite them to a table. We're going to talk about everything. What is it you want to talk about? But then tell them as well that, oh, we have some other issues here that we want to talk about as well. I mean, we want to make it easy.
Yeah.
Then there's a way for you to also come in and weigh in so that if we give you something, you also go tell your side, we need a blessing for us to continue towards this direction. 60 days now. That's 2 months. Good, let's go sit down and have those conversations. But then, Prof, the issues of discussion were not ring-fenced.
Yeah.
Nobody came in and said, this 10, fine. So invite proposals on these 10 issues. No, that didn't happen. That's why all of a sudden now, we're getting even the likes of General Gay say, well, presidential term extended to 7 years.
Yeah.
And nobody said that we can't talk about issues that were not decided upon by that particular committee. Makes you ask the question, why did they say no to some of the issues that the Azimio coalition raised?
Yeah.
But that notwithstanding, all of a sudden now, other than just maybe one, it looks like all those particular issues are going to go to a referendum, which essentially then takes us back to Parliament, takes us back to the National Treasury, who have been crying about how paying of the public debt that we have here is an issue.
Yeah.
Which, again, we're going to wait for them to come in and say the cost of a referendum now is going to be this much.
Yeah.
Which is, again, going to raise the question, we as a country, do we have the resources then, right now, at a time when we're crying of public debt, when we're crying of how much we owe our creditors?
Yeah.
It's going to be a question that's never going to be here nor there. Or if indeed they say yes, again, when this referendum is going to go down, it's neither here nor there. Is somebody somewhere becoming really smart in the sense of this?
Yeah.
Yes, we're going to talk about it, but it's never here.
Simba, let me tell you what. I'm a strategist to the core. And I think that the only way to know that, how can a young boy who walked barefoot in Ugenya with zero become a professor? Isn't it? There must be a strategy. So that's the only way to explain, because results shows us whether you have a strategy or not.
That's it.
Let me tell you what. Someone is being bullied. And that person who is being bullied, they know. They don't know. When we did literature, did you hear something called situational irony?
Does it?
Situational irony is whereby one of the main actor is going to be killed, but the actor doesn't know. But everybody watching knows. Have you seen situation where you know this guy's murder has been figured, how he'll be shot, so the women he's kissing are taking him to his death, and you can see all that in the movie, and the actor doesn't know. That's when they're gonna die. You remember what happened in Russia? Everyone watching knew this guy's day is numbered now, and the guy is gonna be fixed. Then he was fixed. So in the same thing, I can watch it, and I said this thing before the first talks began, and I said, Raila Odinga is a poor boardroom negotiator. And that remains so. He got it wrong with Kibaki, because Kibaki got the better end of the stick on him in the negotiations at the Serena. Uhuru got the better end, because Uhuru wanted to rule for 5 years comfortably. He got everything he wanted. And Raila got nothing, because Raila's aim was to get to the presidency, and BBI was supposed to be the vehicle, and handshake was supposed to help it happen. When handshake became the only thing that stopped Raila from being president, we got clear that he didn't get his negotiations right. I remember in 2008, as a young strategist, I went to Raila Odinga and I said, Prime Minister, let me tell you, no, before he was not, but he was just named some kind of a principal. Do this. If I'm you, this is how I'll approach the negotiation. You said you won the election fairly and squarely. And they stole the election fairly and squarely, and we have a dilemma that the guy is already a president. So why don't you go to negotiate this way? That because you won the election and Kibaki is the president already, why don't you negotiate that? Let him rule for 5 years. And after 5 years, you take over because you had won already. Why are you going for another election after you had won? You understand? But he didn't take my word. He said, no, you see, that's not constitutional. Then National Accord was not constitutional.
It wasn't.
Because National Accord was drafted, then taken to Parliament to force to make it constitutional. We come to the handshake. I said, this handshake thing will be your many, because you're going to carry the sins of the other guy whom you claim he has. You cannot create, your political strategy is always to check on the person in power, try to show them what they're doing wrong. When you do handshake, you lose that button. Because if your button has always been to shoot at the people who are doing the wrong thing, then now you are inside. You cannot. That's why his campaign was not Raila Odinga. The whole of campaign for 2022, you don't see the personality of Raila Odinga the way you know it. Like now you can see him when he is fiery, he can be able to articulate issues, what is going wrong, cost of living. Before he could not, because he could not talk against, because the handshake was done. So that was the poor negotiation room. Now we come now to this one. Again, this is got wrong. And I can tell you that he's being fooled in the process, because you can see that is situational irony. Everybody watching knows this is not for him. Remember, as you said before, that Kenya Kwanza did not want some issues to be part of the agenda because they thought it was hurting. Maybe I'm saying, oh, let me see. Then they just figure out a strategy and say, okay, let's cook this man. Let us open the floodgate, let everything happen, but nothing will happen. So everything is going on, but in actual sense, anybody watching with a strategic eye, Solomonic eye, knows that nothing is going on. For reasons, first of all, it's good to put this in dimension. You had that Obasanjo was supposed to chair this dialogue, isn't it? Do you know why the Obasanjo idea has been lost and no one is talking about it? We have forgotten it. Do you know why? Why? By the time Obasanjo was chairing, the agendas were strictly 5 versus 5, isn't it? Yes, sir. When now it comes to the hands of the Ichungwa and Kalonzo Commission, then everything is allowed. When Kofi Annan came, that's why the Accord Raila almost got right. That Accord came up with timelines on how everything was supposed to be done, isn't it? Will this happen? Like Accord said, when we shall amend the Constitution. Accord came by saying, who will leave office? Remember, maybe you are too young in 2007, 2008.
I actually remember. No, I actually don't remember.
They said when Attorney General will leave office, they'll appoint new ones. Because Raila was clear that if he continues serving with Kibaki, and the Attorney General was there, which was almost Wako, we had the CJ was there. Yes. So it was timeline. The Constitution had got its own, it was self-driven, whereby if you don't do something, something happens. Like if you don't appoint a new Attorney General, your Attorney General goes home. So what do you do? Then that's why it was supposed to be Raila Odinga and Kibaki consults to come up with a new office. That's why there's when Kibaki appointed some people, Raila Odinga was not consulted. They called the press statement, and the Constitution was very clear, the Accord was clear that he must be consulted. Of course, being consulted is neither here nor there. But I'm trying to say that if Raila got it right, yes, on the consultation, Raila was not supposed to say he was supposed to be consulted. He was supposed to say, I was supposed to participate in the decision making. Consultation, you can be consultant and nothing. But participation means you must agree. So I'm trying to tell you, these words you take for granted. This is how things are. I'm an expert in negotiation. I've negotiated very good deals. And I've made many people make so much money in simple negotiation. Yes. And that's what I live for the business. So I'm trying to say, I can see that we are being taken for a ride. Then why do you think Obasanjo did not come? One, maybe there was no money. Because remember before, this talk was supposed to be financed by foreign partners. You saw Kuu here. They were thinking that Americans or development partners abroad will say, let me finance the dialogue. Then these guys could be meeting in the moon, isn't it? All allowances. Allowance in the moon is higher because air is thin, everything is very expensive. But so Obasanjo, who will finance Obasanjo's committee study? Because Obasanjo could have said, I'm coming with a battery of team of lawyers and experts to help me do this, isn't it? It could have been done by eminent partners or eminent persons like a Kofi Annan team. So all these things, Raila said, are keen to a national accord. Has he got it? I want a national dialogue akin to national accord.
Yeah, that's what he said.
This is not akin because the chair is not eminent persons like the National Accord, isn't it? It is having co-chairs. And then they said, if in case they disagree in issues, is written there, Parliament will come to decide, isn't it? Who rules Parliament? William Ruto, isn't it? So I can tell you, a football match is won before the match begins. A military battle is won before it begins. Yes. The same thing, this negotiation has been won or lost before it begins.
Prof, I mean, look at the way it is. Yeah. If I as a journalist can sort of look at it and decipher exactly what's going on and start asking questions of the process, and it's a good thing you mentioned that particular area that I was going to jump into shortly, that should the committee disagree on issues, Parliament is going to come in and help discuss those issues and get solutions on it.
Yeah.
Raila Amolo Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka are not stupid, Prof. That's what I want you to understand. That they know very well that once it goes back to Parliament, then they've already lost it. Yeah. And that's exactly what they were avoiding. They didn't want this process to be a parliamentary process.
But it is.
So when you look at that particular phrase right there, that well, should you disagree, we're going to go back to Parliament.
Yeah.
But it is within faith that all of you in this committee get to an agreeing point.
Yeah.
Prof, they're not stupid. You can't tell me that Raila Amolo Odinga doesn't have his advisors who are telling him, you see the way it's poised, it's going to go back to the National House, which essentially is what you were running away from. The way it's poised, the office of the opposition, the entrenchment of CDF Kitty, the embedment of the office of the cabinet secretary in the constitution, that's essentially a constitutional process, has to go back to a referendum.
Yes.
So which is why I'm asking this question then. Is Raila Amolo Odinga and RUTO in bed as it stands now?
Actually, let me tell you this. Do you know since 1992, Raila Odinga, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, William Ruto, all these guys were in government. And for me, while I'm talking to the young people, it looks like a script. You see a book which has got series, where someone has been told, you play this role. For you, just look stupid. Just look like for you are always stupid. For you, look like you are very brutal. For you, look like you follow the... And these guys meet and agree. These guys have met, according to me, as I can think about it. These guys probably has met Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Odinga, because the guys who pulled this country are three people. Raila Odinga, Ruto, and Uhuru. And they have decided which role you play. Like if we want to cheat somebody, want to con somebody, me, you, and the third person can agree on, your work is just smile, look like you are very happy. For you, you look like you don't care. Then for you, get the deal from here. Even robbers, when they go to rob a bank, there are guys who has to shoot up. There are people collecting money in bags, isn't it? And there are some people who are drivers, isn't it? So everybody has a role. So this is a script. These guys have been here since 1992. William Ruto became MP first in 1997, isn't it? So there's a script, these guys, everybody's playing a role. So for me, I see a role play here in case there's anything that is being done. But majorly, let me focus on Wanjiku. Because for me, this conversation should be about Kenyans.
Yes.
What should Kenyans do in this situation? Kenyans should reject all those proposals which are not going to add value, because what happens normally is that politicians go to the table, they eat, and everyone else gets breadcrumbs. So is there any breadcrumbs in this process? Do you see any breadcrumbs here? Prime CS position being put in the constitution, what does Wanjiku get? Tell me whether you fix IBC and there's this corruption, what do we get? Can this dialogue in Bomas once and for all, end the so-called post-election negotiations. We've had them since Moi's time. Moi did MOU with Raila Odinga, isn't it? Kibaki had his Nusumkate with Raila. Then Uhuru had the handshake. RUTO is now having national dialogue. After 2027, again another dialogue. Remember, after the election, people now expected things to work. And as I tell you, we should not go in this direction. In China, there is no election. The president meets in an hotel with the people and is appointed president in 1 hour. China is an economy of $20 trillion. For us here, we are, I don't know what we can even call this economy. Sometimes I even forget the economy. What I'm trying to say is that, and in that 1 hour, the president of China, Xi Jinping, stand up and says, this is what I'll do for you. And he's doing it. He said, I'm going to create 20 million urban jobs. Simba, can you imagine if 20 million people start working in Nairobi? Urban jobs are not these jobs we're doing, your Kali job. Urban jobs mean in China is where you earn something like $25,000 a month. You understand that? $25,000 a month, those are urban jobs. Can you imagine if we just have 20 million urban jobs in Nairobi where people are earning $250,000 a month? Do you know how you dress? There'll be 20 million people buying equivalent shoes that you have, equivalent socks you have, equivalent suit that you have, equivalent ties you have, equivalent shirts you have. This is how the economy will grow, because the people selling clothes will sell 20 million suits. You understand? Yes. They'll sell 20 million shoes, 20 million socks. And in your house you have a sofa set. They'll sell 20 million sofa sets. You understand? They are going to sell 20 million gas cookers. They are going to sell 20 million microwaves. They are going to rent 20 million houses. I'm telling you, as an economist, this country can be turned just with good faith. And what I'm trying to Kenya, don't listen to the noise in Bomas. Listen to what I'm trying to say. That this life do not have to be expensive the way you think it should be. It can be corrected with someone who knows how to correct an economy. I've told you. And it's a simple equation how to create these 20 million jobs. In China, they just did what's called incentivizing childbearing, child rearing, and child education, which means more people are now giving birth, isn't it? More people are taking children to school. More people are doing business. So you set up a school because you know there'll be more children, isn't it? Yeah. Now for you now, you find a way on which you can be able to sell children's clothes. You know what I mean? Because in China, if you ask, what's the population at? 1.5 billion. If every family has one more baby, are you getting my point? Just one family, you'll find that there's almost 150 million children in a year. Mm-hmm. Every child needs a diaper, isn't it? Are you getting what I'm saying? The impact of an economy. So an economic model like we are talking about, the one we have in Kenya Kwanza here, is a wrong one. We need a right economic model, because taxation is a tool, yes, to increase consumption. Like I'm talking about the issue of shoes, isn't it? Yes. If you lower tax the way that you create more jobs, people will sell more shoes because more people will buy shoes, they can afford it. Then also you should increase production. Any tool in economy that does not increase productivity or consumption is killing the economy. And the current Kenya Kwanza model is doing that. So instead of sitting in Bomas to discuss about how to bring prime CS, why don't you discuss issues, for example, how can we increase consumption in the country, productivity? Today I'm going to be live on a panel with Kenya Association of Manufacturers discussing about how we can ensure that we make the economy produce. And let me tell you, it's a simple mathematics. Have you heard that somebody can go in light industries and produce an equivalent of Johnny Walker? Like, have you heard about contraband?
Yeah.
That person should not be arrested. Me, if I'm the president, do you know how to do that person? I'll tell him, if you can manufacture an equivalent of Johnny Walker, let's do this. Let's give you incentive. What do you need to produce another brand but as good as Johnny Walker? Then we call it Simba Walker, isn't it? Yes. So Simba Walker will be a brand manufactured by a Kenyan who is intelligent enough to counterfeit Johnny Walker, Jameson, don't arrest that Kenyan. For me, I'll go to him and tell him, okay, what do you need? Why are you, can we help you brand something? For example, Kenya Walker. How can we brand Kenya Walker or Kenya Cane or whatever we call it so that you can produce? And these guys can do it because he can produce volumes, he can sell and make money. And Johnny Walker is a very good brand that if someone can replicate, seriously, they can do something. So I'm going to tell them, let's not start by saying, how much money do we need? No, let's start by saying, how many Kenyans in large industries here are counterfeiting products? Yes. Someone counterfeits Keringet. Someone counterfeits this one, Dasani, isn't it? Why don't we help that person to manufacture a Kenyan water? Why don't we help that person? So these are the ways to grow the economy. In China, which I've written in my book called Solomonic Economic Model, they do what's called copy shamelessly. Copy shamelessly. Chinese do not have to invent many things. That's how they began. They go to US, see what people are doing, and they come to China and copy immediately. Why are Kenyans innovating? Copy fast. Just copy what's working. We cannot even copy what is working and we want to innovate. We can't. So for me, what I'll tell Kenyans, we can actually do those manufacturing, industrialization by just picking people who have interest already. Do you know somebody can counter by Lookuptv? So we should not be able to arrest that guy. Tell them, okay, what do you need so that we can incentivize you, isn't it, to build up your test station? Some people came, when I was growing up, there's people used to have what called Sony, then some say Sony Tech. So when you're buying, you think that this is Sony, but actually it's not Sony Tech. Or say Sonia. So for you, you think you're buying Sony, but you buy Sonia. Instead of arresting that person, why don't you ask them, can we give you some kind of training, capacity building, or we give you some resources to build a Kenyan radio? Yes. Instead of arresting this one. These young men you see here, do you know what I like? I meet these young people. Let me tell you, Simba, the solution to this country is not in the old generation, it's in young people. And that's why Solomonic economic model is about knowledge economy. These young people, what they do, in fact, if you'll go to TikTok and find how some of them come with innovative ways to improve TikTok, like someone can tell you, Simba, how can you improve your TikTok viewership? You know, that person, when I tell the young man, if you can just create an innovation hub for these young people, these people can take country to the next level. Silicon Valley, the Silicon Valley that we have about, we have now Silicon Savannah, which will be Konza Technopolis. Instead of bringing these young people to Konza Technopolis and give them places where you can give them fiber optic, give them infrastructure to innovate the next Kenya, we are putting all people who are stealing, like now we are seeing the front of page here where people stole money. I'm telling you, as a young person, and Simba, you are young like me, isn't it? The most important thing we need here is that youth should not say they're leaders of tomorrow. Another thing we are missing, youth are 75% of the population, isn't it? How many of them are in Bomas? They are being represented. But who will listen to them? You know, there's one thing to represent youths, but there's one thing to listen to the youthful voice. I sit in board meetings. There's a time I was training a board meeting whereby the average age of the board is 69. Then they have said they want a young person in the board. Then asking, excuse me, you people, forget about being a young person in the board. Can you listen to a young person and take their advice to grow? You want a woman in the board. Can you listen? The issue is not having a woman in the board because they can be able to bring you tea or coffee. What I see in the board is whereby the youth will be told, now we are finished, can you say something? We are finished. So whatever you're saying, even there's no being recording. Then they tell the woman in the board says, can you check whether tea is ready? Or can you pray? So women are to pray in the board, youth are to pray, or for them are to comment, or just say, yeah, I've listened to it, it's very nice. What I'm trying to say is that before we see young people as a solution to this country, yes, we are seeing them as a problem. Simba, there's a book I read, and I told one of the authors of this book, I told them, I'll never read this book, because he wrote on front of the page is, youth, a sitting time bomb. They see young people as a time bomb. The president of this country, in fact, in spite of him talking about hustlers, he sees young people as a problem. And don't tell me I'm wrong. The studies are clear. How many prisons is the president constructing? He's constructing some of the largest prisons investment in the history of this country, isn't it? You know that. Who should go to prison? These young people. If you see youth as a problem, you hire more police and build more prison. But why don't you take them the Silicon Savannah in Konza Technopolis instead of take them to jail? So what I'm trying to tell you here is that the way you define a problem determines how you look at it. So if Simba is a problem, what should I do? When you see a problem, you carry a gun next to the problem, isn't it? So I'm trying to say, for me, the big issue should be discussing about the economy.
Yes.
And everything else being discussed in Bomas, for me, they are not really sensible. Because when there's no money in the country, people fight. If there's a lot of money in this country, people will be looking for that money, guarding that money, using that money, enjoying that money. They have nothing to do with you. But when people are hungry, then it is you, as a father at home. When I brought money, there's everything in the home. The children, the wife focus on those things. They don't focus on me. But when people are hungry, they say, Daddy, are you going? When are you coming back? And what are you leaving us with? Those questions come only when there's no money. So let's make a vibrant economy. Let us fight this. Let us stop these small fights we have with each other.
Pretty much. Guess what? Once we come back, let's clear this conversation then. If indeed, if it's 106 million shillings with 31 days to go, is it really unnecessary expenditure? And what are those issues that we really need to table right there? Prof has opened that conversation already on how we should stop talking about positions and how we're going to go back to referendum, which is another costly affair, to addressing the issues that are facing Kenyans now. Number one on those is taxation. Will that committee agree on the tax strategy for the country? Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift.
Are you Realize your home ownership dream by investing in Brookvale Tuala, a magnificent prime residential property located in Ongata, Rongai. Brookvale Tuala by Safaricom Investment Cooperative overlooks the majestic Ngong Hills and lies only 24 kilometers from Nairobi CBD. The project boasts of well-serviced plots with a perimeter wall, graded roads and a borehole. 50 by 100 plots are going for 1.4 million shillings with a flexible payment plan of up to 6 months. To book your plot, call 0729 121212 today. Safaricom Investment Cooperative, the investment partner of choice.
Are you looking for experts in waterproofing systems, concrete admixtures, flooring systems, refurbishment solutions, roofing, sealing and bonding, and building finishing systems? Look no more, as Sika Kenya got you covered. With over 113 years of experience, we offer our customers a comprehensive one-stop shop experience and the best technical support. Our products are available in all leading hardware stores and building merchants across the country. Call us today on 0711 140 232 or 0786 140 834 or email us on sales@ke.sika.com. Sika Kenya, building trust.
TV across all your social media platforms. Thank you very much for sticking around since 7 a.m. in the morning. Now let's then get into the last part of our conversation. If indeed we are spending money, and it's not little money. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, 20 people are going to be receiving 106 million shillings. After 31 days, that's a lot of money. And by our calculation, by the way, in the office yesterday, so if we go by the technical committees that are advising the main committee, we'll be having 15 aside. So divide 106 million, 15 aside in 2 months. Some people will be going home with around 35,000 shillings, give or take. I do not know whether they're going to give more to the chairman. Per day. More to the chairman, less to the rest of them. We do not know how the division is going to go, but 35,000 shillings is the average. So I do not know why they decided to give journalists 2,500 shillings.
It's just because, I said that when these guys sit on the table, you eat breadcrumbs. Yeah. So that's breadcrumb.
What's that? 2,500? I didn't understand. Prof, I didn't understand.
Is that including transport allowance?
They didn't put it, they just said 2,500 shillings.
But you see, these guys is paying 35,000 sitting, they have a transport allowance.
They do, yeah.
They are driving government vehicles.
They do.
So for you, you'll drive your good Mercedes-Benz to that venue,
and get
no one
paid.
is going to fuel you. And you know, by the way, I've driven that kind of your car. It's a good car. It consumes some good some fuel.
Yeah, it is.
So if you remove fuel there, they're giving you lunch there?
No.
So you have nothing.
But the company is taking lunch, though.
Yeah.
They take lunch breaks.
Yeah.
And tea breaks.
No, if you look at this thing being a hustler government, it's even saddening because they are giving, they are having what's called this cash transfer program, where they're transferring 2,000 per month to Kenyans while they are taking 35,000 per day. My brother.
Oof. I
No, I'm sorry. No, but I'm giving you the numbers.
Listen, Lugaria Stanley, if you listen today, I know you want to go back to the Bomas of Kenya. Bwana, ukifanya hiyo story omba 5K bwana hata kidogo. Anyway, Prof, away from how much money we're going to spend from that, even if we're saying that these conversations that we're having at the Bomas of Kenya are essentially useless, the way you just put it. I mean, we're talking about embedment of the office of the Cabinet Secretary into the Constitution. It's already happening. We have a prime CS. We're talking about making it legal for members of parliament to control the CDF. They are already controlling it. They went on strike the other day. They're already controlling it. If indeed majority of these issues are happening, by the way, there's a senator who asked a very good question the other day. His name is Sifuna, they were at Lodwar, during their Senate tours across the country. He said, I do not understand what we're talking about. He was talking about the issue for health workers that the president commissioned the other day from Uhuru Park. He said, here we are talking about making this a law in this country to enable the healthcare sector perform. But the other day, the president officially commissioned healthcare workers, public healthcare workers from Uhuru Park. Him and the governor for Nairobi, Johnson Sakaja. He said, what are we doing? So what are we talking about? Why are we wasting time talking about something that is already in operation? I want to ask you the same question. Why are we paying 35,000 shillings a day to the members who are sitting in that committee to talk about the office of the CS, which is already happening, CDF, which is already happening. We have essentially the opposition leader, which is already happening.
Simba, I have 2 daughters. If you rape my daughter, then you come and tell me I'm asking for a hand in marriage. How will I react to you? This is what they're doing. They have already raped the Constitution. Now they're telling us now they want to marry a daughter they have raped. Already you raped my daughter, she's pregnant, isn't it? Then you're coming to ask for my permission. It's a joke, isn't it? That's what is happening. So for me, it's an exercise in futility. It's a waste of time, waste of taxpayer money. And I told you, let me tell you, Simba, this country is rich. I'm an economist. I look at the numbers we're having. We collect 300 billion shillings a month, isn't it? Times 12 is 3.6 trillion Kenya shillings. The exact budget. We don't need to borrow, not even a coin. That's why I'm in court. Asking the government to explain to us why is the debt. Because according to the petition I took to court, I don't want to explain the merit or demerit, but this is the case, that 3.1 trillion is the money that passed through appropriation bill. Let's say appropriation by parliament, 3.1. Treasury, in the website, they say the debt of Kenya is 6.5 trillion. State House, it is 9.5 trillion, which is our debt. Which means these figures are not things that you can say error. It's not like, let's say, by error, because a gap between that is around 6 trillion, a gap of 6 trillion. Do you know how many zeros are in a trillion? How many of our viewers know how many zeros are in a trillion? They don't even know. So it cannot be just, there must be something really wrong. So what I'm trying to say,
it's not rounding off.
Yeah, we have enough money to finance the Bomas talks. We have enough money to finance the referendum. We have enough money to make the cost of living bearable. We just do not want. And my concern is not about the money we have to spend in Bomas, money we have to spend in the referendum. My main concern is that what are we financing? Are we financing content that will change the lives of Wanjiku? When Mama Moga will be seeing this money being spent in Bomas, and when Mama Moga will be seeing the referendum being passed, Is she going to celebrate in her pocket? Is she going to see this when she takes a child to school?
Yeah.
Is she going to experience this when she goes to hospital? Even flagging those things by the president and the rest, is someone going to find better healthcare after those things? Or these are just PR exercises? Because I can tell you there are so many other things which are wrong about the healthcare system, wrong about the issue of how we finance, all these things. There's so many things wrong. NHI, for example, or the contribution they're talking about, over 75% of the contribution you make, the premiums you pay, goes into recurrent expenditure. Only 25% goes to hospital. Why? We have something called NHIF, the printer card, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know how much printing one card cost? 250 shillings, isn't it? We have 53 million population, isn't it? If you print 53 million cards multiplied by 25, it's almost 7 billion shillings in printing cards, isn't it? Yet we are running a digital nation. Why should you even print? What can you do with 7 billion shillings? You can construct 7 county referral hospitals in the country.
Level 4, by the way.
Level 4.
Level 4. Yeah.
Yes, 7.
Yeah.
Now, you spend that money on printing cards. Let's go to the issue of the transport. I wrote an article about the cost of transport, isn't it? The Prime Minister, the Deputy President has been allocated 30 cars, fuel guzzlers, isn't it? The Prime CS, whose position is yet to be constitutional, has 15. Every minister has 7. Every PS has 5. And then we have these advisors who are 10, those who have 5. I've done it cumulatively and found that the total cost of financing the transport for the cabinet for a whole year is 96.2 billion shillings a year. If you cut those cars by 3/4 and give them just a third, which is what they need, you'd have brought down you'll have saved something like 69 billion shillings. What can you do with that? You can build 3 expressway, Nairobi Expressway 3. My brother, I'm telling you that if anybody's listening to me, this should be the conversation. So if you can be able to spend 69 billion shillings a year that you don't need, can't you finance a referendum? What is Bomas? 100 and something million. So the issue is there's nothing like lack of money. Do you know why the development partners have refused to put money on these talks? Do you know before, any African country that needed money could just come chaos, then say we need a reform, then they'll come and finance, isn't it? But what has happened in Kenya is that you have to know as citizens, Kenya moved from low income to middle income economy. So by classification, you cannot access some funding.
No, you're not needy anymore.
You're not needy anymore. Yeah. So if development partners have told us we are middle income economy, is every Kenyan living a middle income life? No. Why? Because the size of the economy, given the population we have, everybody should be driving. I'm telling you, what is happening is that very few people are having too much, while very many people are having nothing. So the issue is distribution of resources. The issue is equality. The issue is equity. And the issue is inequality. Gaps are too broad in Kenya, which is measured in economy, something called Gini coefficient. Yeah. Gini coefficient measures inequality. So because of inequality, we have so much wealth sitting on very few people, leaving many people very poor. And if I can tell you, out of our national revenue, the total national revenue of Kenya is controlled, 98% of the national revenue of Kenya is controlled by 2% of Kenyans. Now leaving 98% of Kenyans fighting for 2% of the national revenue. So if you sell maize, you are selling clothes, you are selling samosa, isn't it? You are a boda rider, isn't it? Those ones are the 98% of Kenyans who are sharing 2% of the national revenue. But there's 2% of Kenyans who share 98% of the Kenyan revenue. So the issue here we are discussing about here is that Kenya is too rich. The only thing is completely mismanaged. And if you are listening to me, Simba, in the 2027 election, do not understand which party is bigger, who can win. Look for who is a governance expert, yes, who can govern the country, not rule the country, govern the country. Yes. Kenya needs to be governed. Kenya has so much. That's why Coons was here from the US, isn't it? To help the negotiation, isn't it? Why didn't he allow Americans to give us money for national dialogue? He knows we have money. We saw UK guys coming here. France was here. Why didn't they give us money? They know we have money. We are a middle income economy. Simba, when I was doing my PhD in Europe, when I just arrived, when I went to the business school, I was doing my PhD. You know, the day you are excited about your first time in school, isn't it? You didn't even sleep, I'm sure. So I arrived too early, and when I was in the school, I found the watchman. Someone passed me by the gate, then he parked his car. So I went to greet him, thinking actually he's the director of the business school. But he came and said, no, I'm the security guard. And I said, hey, security guard driving your car, my brother. You see that's your car? Security guard is driving it in US, in Europe. Now, in Europe, when I was living in Europe, I was getting a stipend of 1,200. The watchmen earn an average of 800 euros. Me, I was earning 1,200 euros per month as stipend. I was not working. I was not earning. Actually, I was giving a stipend for studying. I was being paid to study. So, but for him, he was being paid. So he was earning 800. So I was seeing me as a black man earning more than a watchman. But a watchman is earning 800. What I'm trying to tell you here in this country, that is possible. There's enough for everybody's need. But we don't have enough for everybody's greed. If we just stop greed and we focus on need, everybody will eat. And let's not go far. You look at the parable of Jesus feeding the 5,000. When Jesus told disciples, these people are hungry, give them food. They said there's no food, but Jesus was very intelligent. Solomonic, Jesus says that, what's the problem here? That there are people who have little. Some people have more than they need. Some people have nothing. So he said, if we just shared, we'll eat. So we shared. Everybody ate until some remained. So some people are keeping money. They're going to die with them to the grave. Then the money is blown by lawyers fighting cases. How many times have we heard that people are fighting about, I don't know, billions of real estate? Somebody died here. He was just working here as if he had nothing. But for you, you were sleeping, hungry every day. I did not have money to go to school. I got chased from school every day. And somebody just left billions of money. Now people are just fighting over that money. That's the only thing that remains, fighting over the money. So Simba, what we are trying to say here is that the discussion in Bomas should center around equality, reducing the inequality gaps, isn't it? Removing corruption, strengthening institutions of governance. This is the way to do, because even if you reform IBC, there's some nonsense called interference in political parties. Why are they worried about interference in political parties, but they're not worried about interference with institutional governments like IBC, judiciary, and the rest? Those should concern you, because that's where Wanjiku gets justice. Any Kenyan who is aggrieved, can they get justice in court? Is it difficult to reach in court and get justice? Access to justice does not mean there's judiciary in Kisumu. Access to justice means that, can someone afford, for example, do we have state lawyers in the US or Europe? If you have any problem, they tell you, do you have a lawyer? If you don't have a lawyer, they give you a government lawyer. They are not the best, but at least you have a lawyer. In Kenya, even accessing your own lawyer, I call my lawyer as if my lawyer is my boss, and they tell you, no, we are very busy. So what I'm trying to say here, Simba, in short, let us focus on how can we transform this economy. The conversation in Bomas is self-interest for politicians. Of course, we always believe that whenever there's a self-interest of a politician, they always throw some breadcrumbs so that we feel we're having something. For example, the cost of living is not the main agenda at the moment. Presidential term limit and the rest means somebody like you, when someone wants to rule for 14 years, my God. How will we be president, my brother?
I do not want to start calculating.
So what I'm trying to say here is that the convention in Bomas should not center around how much it will cost to run the Bomas referendum. should be what is the content worth putting money.
Does it?
To vote whether we should have a prime CS, after you vote, you walk home. Which victory do you have as Mama Mboga? If I look at my voters in Ugenya, I look at my voters in Taita Taveta, I look at them in Kilifi, I look at them in Tana River, will they be walking home saying they have scored anything? But if you vote in a way that we will have what's called equality, and inequality will reduce to this level, and that corruption will be out of the way, so the corruption money will go into healthcare, will go into education, will go into how to lower the taxation, because corruption, Uhuru Kenyatta says we lose 2 billion shillings a day to corruption, isn't it? If you multiply that by 365 days, you don't want to see the figure, isn't it? So what I'm trying to say in short is, can we come with ways to skewer the cancer that is here? Does the president, I like the Sifuna conversation.
Yes.
Does the president need to have a referendum to lower cost of living? Do we need to sit in Bomas to discuss? Economic model and algorithm for sorting out cost of living cannot be generated from Bomas, isn't it? It has to be done at Treasury. We have economists there, isn't it? As an economist, I gave them a formula how to lower taxation, collect more money, isn't it? And ensure Wanjiku is fine. For example, let me tell you one thing. This is what I put in the referendum memorandum on how to lower the cost of living. You at Lookuptv, you pay tax, isn't it? So sometimes you pay VAT. Do you know that we in Kenya we pay VAT on many layers? For example, fuel. When the person importing fuel to the country pays VAT, the people who are doing wholesaling pays VAT. The person paying now retailing at the fuel pump does VAT, and they need to have what they call these machines for VAT, isn't it? And I told them, if the person importing fuel pays Kenya Revenue Authority VAT for everybody, isn't it? Then after that, they'll sort themselves out. You lower the cost of taxation by, KRA is given a budget of around 9 billion shillings to collect the money they collect, isn't it?
Yes.
Why? Because we need an officer checking at each account, isn't it? So imagine how many fuel stations we have, more than 3,000. So should be an officer looking at the 3,000 people who are retailing fuel. But if you collect it up here, you don't have to employ a lot of those 3,000 officers trying to help you collect money from a fuel station here, fuel station there. You saw that's nonsense whereby they are saying KRA is now setting up people to run people's offices and businesses to check who is not paying taxes. They are not coming here with water. They are spending money, isn't it? If you talk about someone being paid 3,000 shillings a day to come to your offices to check who is paying taxes or not, that cost will not even have cost-benefit analysis. So what I'm trying to say is that we can actually streamline how taxes are collected. For example, I give example, Safaricom. Safaricom has so many of these agents that sell airtime, isn't it? So Safaricom has paid for them VAT, isn't it? So KRA do not have to come to your agent shop to ask you, why are your taxes? So Safaricom has paid for you VAT up there as one entity. We have more than 50,000 agents across the country, isn't it? So those 50,000 do not have to help the KRA. Safaricom has paid for them. Those Safaricom deducts now from them, and there is a way they know how to deduct. So KRA don't have to bother. We can do that about collection of fuel, isn't it? Whereby all these petrol stations, the tax has been paid by the person selling to them.
Yes.
They pay KRA. So KRA will just go to you, where is our money? You give them. Then you sort out your own. We can go that to all sectors, isn't it? We can go to all sectors. We reduce the cost of collecting taxes and we focus on lowering the cost of living to people. But why are they there? Somebody has gone to KRA and presented a tender to KRA, isn't it, a board, and that tender has been given to him through government. Of course, he's a connected person in government, to put up a team of people working in all states in Kawangware, everywhere, and he's earning money. That 9 billion shillings for collecting taxes is going to them. So that's the reason why you cannot say, let's stop it. That's actually that 2% control 98% of revenue.
Yes.
The person getting that contract of 9 billion is not you. It's not the Mama Mbogas they talked about. It's not the Boda we talked about. It is someone very powerful. So you see these guys with suit all the time. They're sitting in restaurants, just drinking tea and talking. For you are working very hard, think you'll match them. You'll never get where they are. They are controlling the economy.
Yes.
So I would urge the president and Raila Odinga, let's discuss what is affecting Kenyans, which is cost of living. Inequality levels are so high in this country. And at the same time, let us cut the cost of running government, because they are for sure algorithm to do that, and let us grow this economy genuinely.
Pretty much. Whew. What do you think should be the agenda at the Bomas of Kenya? It is 31 days to the end of it. Talk to us at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. You got to allow Prof is got another meeting that he's going to bash to. Prof, thank you very much for coming by. Any other time, and once we come back, we continue with the show. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kieke.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industry